Hi, I'm Laura Rolfe. I am host of Powered by Franchising and CEO of Mint Franchise Consultants. I thought with the new year, it would be a great opportunity to revisit some of the basics of franchising and what franchising is all about, what it is, what it isn't, the process of the franchise discovery process, and my role as a certified franchise consultant in helping you find a perfect opportunity in your market. So, welcome and thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Powered by Franchising. So, I've been in franchising most of my life. I've talked about that on other shows. My parents were Coors beer distributors, which is a form of franchising where they paid a fee, they had royalties, they followed a proven business model. Most people have heard of Coors beer. So that's how really I got my start in franchising many, many years ago. And then I was involved in nonprofit for about 25 years and worked with a lot of nationally recognized brands from Harley Davidson to Budweiser, a direct competitor of Coors, as well as 7-Eleven, Massage Envy, Burger King, McDonald's, and the list goes on and on. So, like many of the people that I work with, at the beginning of COVID, found that I was in mid-career transition through no fault of my own. I worked in nonprofit. Donations were down to the nonprofit that I worked for. And so rather than continuing my work in fundraising, I looked to other opportunities and partnered with a couple of different franchise consultants to really drill down what my business and investment goals for myself personally. I probably looked at about 10 different franchises about 5 years ago to see what I did and didn't want in a business. At first glance, I thought I wanted to own and operate a senior care franchise. I looked at a handful of those and love the business model, love the profitability, and the ability to give back to help people maintain their independence in their home were all big rewards that appealed to me. But managing a large team of caregivers and a large patient base, particularly during the COVID period of time, didn't appeal to me. So working with a consultant, we talked through some other business opportunities. I'm a big believer in home services and looked at a couple of different painting concepts as well as window covering and floor concepts. But again, they didn't fit what my personal business and investment goals were, which was flexibility. I am able to become a franchise consultant anywhere at any time. So my business is very mobile. Primarily, I work out of my home. I don't have any employees to manage, although that's about to change because I did bring my daughter on board in the business. So Kate is joining me. She's actually going through training as we speak this week and will be joining me in the business. But a lot of flexibility in franchise consulting. Plus, I still continue to fulfill one of my core values, which is changing people's lives. I am just now doing it through business ownership. So that's a brief background about me. As we continue, I'm going to talk about the different franchise business models and how I work with clients to help them find business opportunities that align with their goals. And I'll give you some examples of some success stories of placements that I've done over the last 4 years. So first off, what is franchising? If you're looking at franchising for the first time, essentially franchising is a way for a proven business model to be replicated in cities and states across the US, Canada, as well as internationally. And I focus primarily on US-based clients or entrepreneurs. I have worked with a couple of Canadian candidates and then also specialize in E2 visa or those international investors looking to relocate to the U.S. to start a business. But in franchising, essentially franchising grants a franchisee the rights to operate a specific business using the franchisor's brand expertise and intellectual property to build a big business in their community. Franchises offer support and potentially reduce the risk for their franchisees to start a business and operate it using those proven strategies from marketing campaigns, training, operational support, etc. Most of us are familiar with a lot of brick and mortar type of franchises that we see every day when we're driving around our communities, from Subway to McDonald's. I'm also often asked about Chick-fil-A as a franchise opportunity, and those pros and cons of the food industry. But outside of the food industry, franchising is also a replicatable business model for more than 65 industries, from home services to senior care, alternative healthcare, med spas, many of our fitness franchises or gyms, from Anytime Fitness to Orange Theory, Cycle Bar, are all franchise concepts, very successful in replication across markets across the country. There's also marketing and technology franchises, as well as judgment incubators, childcare franchises like Mathnasium or Club Sci-Fi, that are really cool business models for us to explore together. So some of the advantages of franchising versus starting a business from scratch is it has already been established. You don't have to come up with the name, figure out the marketing plan, figure out the operations, etc. Those are already put in place. They're also much more desirable to be funded by a SBA loan. Banks would rather invest in a proven business model than something that you're going to have to sell to the bank on why it's a good business idea and get funding to build and grow your business. Oftentimes with some of the larger brands, there's also brand recognition, which is important to some candidates, as you're looking at an established brand that is already well known in the business, in the community. Other people are looking for an emerging brand, something that has a lot more white space, and you might have a little more influence on how the brand grows over the course of the startup period of time. We'll talk more about that later. Some people, though, don't like franchising because they don't want to have the guardrails on their business and they want a little more creativity with the business model. Well, there are some franchises that do offer some level of creativity, and we can talk about what the more rigid processes are. Those more established brands definitely have a lot more structure and defined railroad tracks that you must follow, while some others have more guardrails that you want to stay within. So we'll talk through that if we decide to have a discussion together. So franchising is appealing because it is a turnkey business model, and typically you have a lower risk for your investment. 90% of franchise businesses are still in business after 5 years, where about 40% of startup businesses starting from the ground up are still in operation after just 2 years. So the numbers speak for themselves as far as why would you want to take an additional risk and start something from scratch versus investing in yourself and a business model that has some legs behind it. So the franchisor will also provide you ongoing training and support. So as you're starting out, you're going to get a lot of training. You're going to usually attend training in the franchisor's headquarters and then have a business coach assigned to you who you'll work with on a regular basis. That business coach may come out to your local market, help you with hiring, finding a physical location if it's a brick and mortar type of franchise, or other things like acquiring clients. They might come out and spend a week with you to show you how the sales process works and how to acquire those clients. In addition to having a business coach, you'll also have a network of other franchisees you can lean into, because chances are if you have a question about your business model in your particular market, somebody else has had that same question as well. So you'll have regularly scheduled meetings with other franchises to talk about best practices. And it's also nice to be part of a community. Those franchises are typically gathering once a year at a convention or perhaps quarterly at a regional meeting to talk about best practices, to talk about business growth and development, best practices for hiring and retaining employees. If you have a business model that does need employees, how do you hire and attract the best people for your particular business? So lots of different advantages from being part of a system. So let's move into understanding the franchise process. If you've looked at franchising before, you may have gone on the internet and done a Google search yourself. That's how I got into it. And started looking at franchises, and it can be a little overwhelming. There are more than 2,000 franchisable business models out there, everything from hotels, car dealerships, restaurants, roofing, painting, kids clubs, etc. And if you haven't really dialed down what your interests are, what appeals to you, having a coach or a franchise consultant can really help guide you to thinking about the right questions to start asking yourself and your loved ones as you're looking at business ownership. Because in addition to the different types of industries that you might want to consider, your likes, your dislikes, some people love pets as an example, and other people are like, absolutely not, I don't want to work with animals. For me, I love seniors. I will work with seniors all day long, but kids, really not my thing. I have two and they're grown, but I never, even though I was a licensed social worker, I always liked working with the seniors and their families, but I didn't really like working with little kids. But that's okay. That's me. So we would talk through, or if you talk to another franchise consultant, talk through what your likes and dislikes are. Do you want to work with and manage a large team, or do you prefer to not manage very many people at all? Do you have a background in technology or marketing, operations? Are you a veteran and really good at following systems? The sky's the limit and lots of different opportunities there. So really getting down to what your likes and dislikes are, what your preferences look like, what your hobbies may look like. Heath, who is a candidate I placed with Garage Up last year, he loves fishing and loves going to garage sales and finding kind of off-the-wall, cool fishing lures. And so we looked at a couple of estate sale franchises for him. And ultimately, he ended up with a Garage Up, which is a garage door, flooring, and garage layout type of business that really aligned with his business and investment goals. But talking about some of his hobbies helped us expand our search and then narrow it down to something that he was really excited about in the end. We'll also talk through what type of ownership you might be interested in. Many of the clients that I work with are keeping their full-time jobs, and they're looking for something that they can invest maybe 10 to 15 hours a week in. That's called semi-passive or semi-absentee investment for the business. You will usually have to hire a general manager to run the day-to-day operations. And in a semi-absentee business model, you'll manage the manager, look at the key performance indicators, and maybe involved in some of the marketing strategies for the business. There's others that want to leave their full-time job, or they recently were laid off. And so that gives us a world of opportunities in owner operator type of businesses? Are you an empire builder that looking to build and scale a really big business? Those are typically opportunities that you'll want to be involved in the business on some level. So either semi-absentee or owner operator, those are great for building that empire. Others are looking for strictly an investment opportunity. There aren't a lot of those that I love, just because they do still require some work, and you'll, in addition to needing a general manager and perhaps a regional manager for your business, you'll also pay some additional fees, a percentage of your gross earnings, to a management company to manage your business for you. But there are some very passive business opportunities that once you have them established, they are great revenue generators. Things like storage facilities or laundromats, car washes, all great absentee business models that just require a couple of employees, very part-time, to be in the day-to-day operations, and then you manage the key performance indicators as the franchisee. But they typically are a larger investment to start and take a little bit of time before you start seeing that return on your investment. Definitely something that we can explore, though, if you like that type of business opportunity, or you can explore with another franchise consultant. So once we take a look at and kind of cast the net wide on your interests, the type of business ownership you're looking for, we also talk about what funds you have available to invest in a business. Now, you might have some cash on hand in the bank. You may have some investments in the stock market or mutual funds. And you might also have some 401k funds from a past employer that we could roll into your business. So we'll talk about your different investment strategies and availability of funds to invest in a business. We can also introduce you to a funding partner of ours who specializes in franchise funding for no obligation discussion on ways to fund your business. That might look like an SBA 7A Express loan, which is a loan up to $150,000. Many of the franchises emerging or established fall into $150,000 or less investment. So that's a great strategy. They typically don't require collateralization of your home. They do need a credit score of 685 or higher to qualify for that SBA 7A Express loan, but definitely a good funding option. You would also need 10% cash liquidity investment into your business. So if you're looking at a $150,000 loan, I typically recommend having about $25,000 cash on hand. Now, if you're looking at a larger business, something that may be a brick and mortar, perhaps you're looking at a Yoga Six or a cycle bar or restaurant or an alternative healthcare type of brand, you might need a dream loan. And those are also backed by the SBA in many instances. Those dream loans will require typically a 20% cash injection, but we can talk more about that if you decide to book a call. Just wanted to touch briefly on funding strategies, which are usually part of our initial or second conversation, just educating you through this process here. So once I have a good idea of what it is your interests are, your investment level, and where geographically you would like to start a business, then I go to work and I review more than 850 different franchise opportunities that I represent and come up with some recommendations. Typically, I will present you with anywhere from 3 to 7 different opportunities that I feel align with your business and investment goals. We'll talk through them on a presentation call so I can chat more about what I like about the business models, why I picked them for you, and any of the things that I think we might need to pay close attention to as we're going through the discovery process if they resonate with you. And then I'll ask you to narrow down the choices to typically one or two that you'll begin the discovery process with. Hopefully I've hit the bullseye and at least one or two resonate with you, but there may be some things that really appeal to you about those brands, but you maybe still want to keep looking at some additional recommendations. So we'll talk through what you like about the recommendations, what else you might be interested in. By then, you've probably had a few conversations with family and friends about franchising and what you're excited about and what you might be a little bit nervous about. So we'll talk about that on our second call. And then I'll introduce you to the franchise brand development team, who will then schedule an initial call to discuss that brand in a little bit greater detail. You'll typically have a webinar, so it'll be online via Zoom or Google Meets. You'll get to meet the brand, understand their culture, their values, and what kind of services they offer to their clients or patients, depending upon the business model. You'll also look at territories and, do you like them? Do you see that you want to continue this conversation for the next 6 to 8 weeks to fully discover this brand? You'll also, after that initial call, you'll typically get what's called a franchise disclosure document. Now, if you've been looking at franchising for a while, you may be familiar with a franchise disclosure document. But for those listeners who have never been through franchising before, let me give you a 10,000-foot view of what the franchise disclosure document is. First off, the Federal Trade Commission does provide oversight for franchising. And as part of that oversight, they require all franchises to disclose 23 different items in what's called a franchise disclosure document, or FDD for short. It can be an overwhelming document. Just want to give you the heads up there. Some of them are 100 pages, and I just looked at one yesterday that was 268 pages. So I'll help you digest that a little bit, and then also refer you to a franchise attorney to go through it with a fine-tooth comb before you're ready to sign. So no worries there. But some of the highlights of that franchise disclosure document, you're going to understand the business model, what services are provided, and the business experience of the leadership team for that particular model. You'll also understand if there's been any bankruptcies or litigation with that particular brand. A lot of the more seasoned or tenured brand with thousands of locations you're gonna see some litigation in there. We live in a litigious society. So is it something that we need to be concerned about, or is it something that is pretty normal in the world of businesses? Most people want to know right off the bat, how much can I make with this business? Well, you'll get a snapshot of earnings claims in that franchise disclosure document. It's listed as item 19 in most of the franchise disclosure documents. That is the one item that is not required by the Federal Trade Commission. So there are a few franchises that decide not to disclose earnings claims in the FDD, heads up there, but most will show you what other locations are earning across the country. Some will even break it down by quartile. So you'll see what the top quartile are earning in the business model, second quartile, third quartile, and bottom quartile. And I usually, when I'm having conversations with clients, we'll talk about, project yourself somewhere in the middle. Are you going to be an overachiever? Well, we all want to be at the top, but we might not start at the top. So if we plan accordingly, and are the earnings claims in the medium income, is that in line with your investment goals? Terrific, that works then. And you'll be able to validate those numbers further down the discovery process. You also want to understand the investment costs. So item 7 in the franchise disclosure document will itemize all of the initial investment costs. Those initial investment costs, you'll get a range of low to high investment costs. They'll include the franchise fee, which gives you the licensing rights to own and operate that particular brand. It'll also include startup costs such as initial marketing budget, build out if it's a brick and mortar space, working with a real estate agent. What is that going to look like as far as your investment? The equipment needed to start up. If you are going to need to lease or purchase a vehicle or other equipment, that'll be itemized in item 7 of that franchise disclosure document as well. And then there are additional funds that are outlined in a low and high range too. Those additional costs will cover things like your employees for the first 3 months of operation, or I like to also call them rainy day funds. Like, you never know what unexpected costs might come up when you're investing in a franchise. So know that you'll get that disclosed to you pretty early on in your conversations with the franchisor. You'll also want to have a good understanding of what your ongoing costs are to operate your franchise. And I do have a sample pro forma. It's blank that you can use to pencil in the ongoing costs. Those will include things like royalties that you'll pay to the franchisor on a weekly, biweekly, or monthly basis. Those royalties, I always say, are the best spent money, and you shouldn't be worried about them. Those royalties will help pay for your business coach and additional marketing and growth strategies with the franchisor. So those are monies that the franchisor is putting to good use on your behalf. You'll also see technology fees. Perhaps there's a national brand fund, as well as maybe a regional co-op that you'll have investments into on a regular basis. So anyway, you'll see those itemized in item number 6. And then the other area that I like to point out is item 20, which lists all of the current franchise owners. So when we get to the validation phase, when you get the opportunity to call current franchise operators and owners, you'll be able to call anybody that's listed in the franchise disclosure document, in addition to anybody the franchisor may give you to speak with. You'll also see in item 20 if there is steady growth with the franchise system. How many franchises have they added each year over the course of the last 3 years? Now, if it's an emerging brand, they might not have any franchises that they've added in their franchise disclosure document over the last 3 years. But that's okay. You know, they're going to be adding franchises as they grow as a franchise system. I always like to remember that every franchise system started with one McDonald's, the first Subway, the first Five Guys, the first Batteries Plus Bulbs, all started somewhere, and they've grown into really big businesses. So don't be too shy of emerging brands, but you'll see that in item 20. We do need to be concerned, though, if we see a lot of closures. Now, if it is a mature brand, a brand that has been around for 10 or 20 or 30 or 50 years, we may see a lot of attrition. A lot of franchises are aging out of the system and retiring, and so they're selling their territory to other franchises in the area or to new franchisees. That's very, very normal. Most franchise agreements are for 10 years. So if a franchise system is 10 years old or more, we're going to see some transfers in there from year to year. But we want to pay attention at the transfers versus closures. Now, there's some systems that had some closures during COVID, and the franchisor will be happy to address any concerns about that. But if there's other concerns that we need to look at, we will certainly do that as part of the discovery process. So more on that as we chat. And then my favorite part of the discovery process is when you get to talk to current franchise owners, because you can get a really good feel about the culture and training and support of a franchise system by talking to current franchise owners. Are they happy? What keeps them up late at night? Would they invest in additional units if they had the opportunity to grow their business? Did they feel like they received adequate training and support during the onboarding process? And do they still get that now? Also, do they have any recommendations for you as a person who's evaluating a particular franchise? Anything that they think you should be paying attention to? And then you can also ask them about their particular earnings. Now, they're not required to share their earnings with you, but many of them are very transparent and will share how much they're making in the business and how long it took them to become cash flow positive. If they've expanded their business, how quickly until they expanded and added another location or expanded into a different market. Perhaps they're stacking brands and they might have some recommendations around that. So validation is by far my favorite step in the process. So that's typically at week 5 or 6 in the discovery process. You'll fill out an application in there. You may take a Zoracle assessment to see if your background aligns with the culture and fit for the franchisor. It is a mutually agreed upon discovery process. So while you're looking at the franchisor to see if it's a good fit for you, the franchisor is also looking at you to see if you're a good fit for the franchisor. Will you align well with their culture and be successful? Because they want you to be successful. And if they don't feel that it's the right fit, they're going to let you know. And no hard feelings. It's just they want to make sure that you're set up for success from the discovery process to opening your business to scaling and growing a big business. The final step in the process is typically a discovery day, also known as a meet the team day or a VIP day, where you're going to go and break bread with the franchisor and meet with their marketing team. You're going to really understand their training and support and onboarding process. And I also say treat it as a final interview. You're interviewing them, they're interviewing you. And then at the end of that discovery day, you'll be extended an offer to franchise with that system. And then you'll have to make the decision if you're going to move forward and sign the franchise agreement and pay the franchise fee and get scheduled for onboarding and training, which is always exciting. I do recommend that you do work with a franchise attorney. I have a list of 3 that many of our clients have worked with in the past. So having a franchise attorney review that franchise agreement so you have a good understanding of what you're signing before you get into business. Because again, most of them are 10-year contracts and you don't want any surprises as you're in month 6 or year 6 of your business after signing that franchise agreement. I will say of note that most franchise agreements, the franchisor is not going to make any changes. So if you have a personal attorney review them and redline the whole thing, the franchisor is going to come back to you and say, you're not the right fit for us. So just knowing that a franchise attorney is the best person to review that legal document is recommended. It's just like I wouldn't go to the dentist if I had a broken wrist. It just doesn't make sense. I would go to a specialist who specialized in broken wrists instead of going to a dentist. I know that's a crazy analogy, but that's what I come up with off the top of my head. So that is the franchise discovery process. So why work with a franchise consultant versus just going out there and finding a business on your own? And certainly you can, you're probably very, very savvy and you can find a great opportunity out there, but it takes a lot of time to research brands, and then also find if they're available in your market. It may take a week or longer to hear back from the franchisor. So working with a franchise consultant, we can help you identify brands that align with your business and investment goals, perhaps bring in a similar type of brand for you to evaluate two side by side. We can also make sure that they're available in your particular market. Not all brands are available in all states. There are some registration states that are a little more difficult to franchise in. And so some franchisors have decided not to offer franchises in a select group of states. So we can kind of cut through all of that initial busy work for you and get down to the brass tacks of what's available that aligns with your business and investment goals. It's also nice to have an expert in franchising in your corner to help you through the discovery process, figure out what questions to ask, connect you with funding sources and franchise attorneys. Perhaps you need a franchise CPA or other professional. We can certainly help navigate those waters. Plus, the franchise consultants, most of them that I work with are, our services are free to you. We don't charge any fees to work with you to do that heavy lifting for you. We do earn a commission from the franchisor if you do decide to invest in a particular brand. And you can't negotiate the franchise fee typically, so you're not going to pay more for a franchise by working with an expert consultant who has experience. I also encourage you to work with a franchise consultant who can bring additional ideas to the table of things that you might not have otherwise thought of. I have a good friend who initially thought they wanted Chick-fil-A or maybe a UPS store, but we talked through what their ultimate business goals were, and they ended up investing in a multi-unit roofing business, and they couldn't be happier. So definitely encourage you to work with, there's lots of advantages to working with a consultant and at least have an initial conversation. And like me, I probably had 10 franchise consultants initially reach out because I inquired about 10 plus brands. And then I got to pick the one that I really connected with and really enjoyed working with. So I often use the analogy of a real estate agent. So if you're looking at a new home, you may interview a couple of real estate agents to decide which one really understands and gets you on what kind of house you're looking for, understands your budget, and shows you the right houses so you can quickly make a decision. The same goes for a franchise consultant. You may interview 2 or 3 and then decide which one really kind of gets you and you want to work with to help you on your journey to franchise business ownership. We do also work with business opportunities, businesses that are not franchises. The difference between a franchise and a business opportunity, the business opportunities are a proven business model, but typically there is no franchise fee and there are no ongoing royalties. So some examples of business opportunities might look like a vending machine business or a sign company or a marketing agency where you pay a fee and invest in the business and you'll get ongoing support, but without the royalties. There are also some educational opportunities. Global Financial Training Program is a low investment financial investment company providing loans and funding for small businesses and churches. So that is a training program that a lot of clients really get excited about investing in. There's also a medical billing learning opportunity to start your own medical billing practice. So if you want more information about those, we can certainly connect and chat about that. So as far as next steps, would love to schedule a call with you if you are interested in chatting about franchising, whether you're just starting out and looking at business opportunities and franchises, or you've been looking for several months and just haven't found the right one. We can certainly chat further and learn a little bit more about you so we can customize our search specific to your interests and your market. You can reach out to me. You can visit my website, which is www.mintfranchiseconsultants.com. You can also find the link where you found this audio or video podcast. So again, franchising is a simple way to get into business for yourself, but never by yourself, following a proven business model and a proven system. With more than 2,000 franchise opportunities out there and available, it is important to work with a franchise expert to make sure that you're finding and investing in the best fit franchise for you. So thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Powered by Franchising. I look forward to speaking with you if you have an interest in diving a little bit further. Again, my name is Laura Rolfe with Mint Franchise Consultants.